I want a student to stay excited and engaged. It's an expensive program. So I recommend a student start tutoring either between their sophomore and junior years or in their junior year.
Because you take it during your junior year.
You take it, the schools generally give an SAT in March. And so a lot of students will start prepping in the fall to prepare for that March test. The biggest hitch, I would say, is that I want my students to have a semester of Algebra 2 before we start into the math section. And the reason for that is because if the math is that difficult and goes through trigonometry, if they don't have at least a semester of Algebra 2, it's really hard for them. That math is very, very complicated. It can ruin their confidence, and I don't want that at all. And they tend not to understand the strategies we're teaching them, which are really important in test taking.
Welcome to today's Heart of the Hustle. I'm here with Sandy Tutwiler from Tutor Doctor. So happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
You guys are my son's tutor.
We are.
Yeah, he's
doing really well.
So much.
Really well. He's working hard.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you. How did you get into tutoring?
Well, I tutored in high school and I tutored in college. I was a math tutor in college, and I loved it. I loved getting to hear when my students did well. I usually heard first before anybody else how they did on an exam or a quiz or their homework that they rarely had to turn in. But it was very rewarding, and I had a lot of fun doing it. But I was a poor college student, and I chose corporate America. I chose to get the bigger paycheck. And I grew up in corporate America for over 25 years. Did all the jobs, and I retired, and I was a little young, so I'm like, oops, I
now what?
I've got to have a job. And as I started exploring options, this became just very clear and evident that, hey, this is an option for me. And I remembered how much I loved it. And I really wanted to make an impact in my local community. I thought, I could do this. I could get behind this. And so that's how it started.
Yeah. And Tutor Doctor's a franchise, but you own the franchises for Frisco and...
So I own Frisco, McKinney, Prosper, Little Elm, Aubrey. I still technically own Richardson, parts of Denton, but I also service Plano and Allen. I have students in North Dallas. I have students in South Lake. So we've extended pretty far. Our reach is pretty far, and I'm really excited about that.
And you've been in business more than 5 years now.
This is our 6th year in business, so it's exciting. We have tripled in size. So I call it a huge success, and I'm very excited for the company. And right now we have a little over 60 tutors that service all of those areas. And I have a couple of them that are not local, that tutor only online, but that were with us at one time locally, but they are pursuing higher education. Yeah. Bigger degrees.
So do people come to the house, or is it mostly online? I know Walden, my son, is doing online.
Yeah. So our model is traditionally that we come to the student's home if you are within our immediate service area. Or we will meet at a library. Sometimes tutoring at home isn't conducive. Or we'll tutor online. Yeah. And we have more and more and more students who are choosing that option as they're, doing online school as well. It's just an extension of what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the trends you're seeing in education these days? I think things have changed a lot. I mean, since COVID and since we grew up, right?
Oh, yeah. Definitely since we grew up. There's a lot that's changed since COVID. One of the biggest trends that we've started seeing is the rise in the importance of SAT and ACT. So when I first started the business, I learned all about it, and then COVID happened, and all the tests were canceled. The kids couldn't sit next to each other. The universities decided they would either become test optional or test blind. And so that was that way for a few years, a handful of years. And then the colleges really started looking at the students that they were getting. And, GPAs are a little inflated. You look at a GPA that maybe somebody from the high school your son goes to or the high school down the street, and it's not an apples for apples comparison. And then when you start comparing students from across the country or across the state, it really jumbles. So they're starting to want to see a little more hardcore evidence that student is college ready and how they're performing. And it plays a big part in admissions now, as well as the scholarships that they can earn. So the number of students that we have tutoring for test prep has more than doubled in the last couple of years.
Wow. And is that all done one-on-one, or do you offer classes?
So I did offer classes at one time. What I found is that even though I offered the class, my students were still booking one-on-one sessions to gain a deeper understanding for them on one subject or another, or one topic or another, and it was never the same topic. And what I realized is, our strength is tutoring one-on-one, and it is tutoring in the way that the student needs to hear the information or see the information. And so I went back to that. I dropped the classes and I went back to just tutoring one-on-one. Now, we've had a number of students who will tutor with their best friend. That's a thing. You want to do SAT or ACT prep with your best friend, and that's okay as long as they are academically matched. It works.
And have, struggles in the same areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually if they're academically matched, you'll see them struggle in the same areas. So, it's easier to tutor 2-on-1 than it is to, 8-on-1. And you really can't give as much individual attention when there's a bigger class.
I wish that was available when I took the SATs. Maybe it was, and I didn't know, but I bombed.
Me too. I will tell you. So, okay, here's a funny story. I was in all what at that time they called honors and gifted classes, right? Straight A student. If I made a B, I thought I might as well be failing. Typical overachiever. And then I went to take the SAT. And I did so badly that my counselor said, it's a fluke. Let's have you take it again. So they signed me up for another test date. And this time, my mother drove me to the test. And this is not a lie. She drove me and she says, no, I'm going to take you and I want you to drink this on the way. And it was a little glass. It was, like an orange juice glass, and it had wine. And she said, this will relax you because you need to relax. Well, I did better, but not well enough to be considered below average. I mean, I still bombed. And okay, so here you have a student who is in the top 10% of her class, great GPA, all these extracurriculars, National Honor Society, and bombs the SAT. And my high school counselor called my mom and said, I just don't think that she's the college type. I think you should start looking at vocational school or something else that she should do. I just don't think, she's... And I will tell you, if I could have been a fly on the wall, she let her have it. That woman, the counselor, never looked at me. I think when I walked the stage at graduation, I still think that she had her eyes down. I don't think she looked at me. And yes, I was accepted to all of the, all this, the A&Ms, the UTs, all the, and then in the end, I chose not to even stay in state. But yes, I did that badly. And look, I'm okay. I survived. So it works. But we're in a different time now. So yeah, it's seen a little differently now than when we were, in high school.
It was still important then, though, because I bombed too. The math portion for sure. I bombed the math portion. And so I did an SAT prep class.
Oh, you did?
Because I just I knew I needed some help.
Yeah.
And I brought my score up significantly, like 400 points or something.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Significantly. Because I just needed some of that extra help. And that was in the days when the SAT was still four questions and you could rule out the two and then you had a 50-50 shot, right? There was like a whole process for learning how to do that. Sorry, kids. It doesn't work like that.
Doesn't work that way anymore. It's a little different.
But I bombed the SATs too. And, you still get into schools and all that kind of stuff because I was the same. National Honor Society, all honors classes, except math. Obviously, and science, but all honors classes and, straight A student and all that. But yeah, sometimes standardized tests just aren't.
They just aren't for the student. And I had such test anxiety that I think even if I had taken a prep class, I don't know, maybe it would have been different, but yeah. So
tell me the difference between the SAT and the ACT, because I've heard it's like regional, because I grew up on the East Coast and I never even heard of ACT. It was all the SAT, but then Texas is ACT.
So SAT and ACT they're just different versions of pretty much the same test. The SAT and ACT, they're both about the same, about 2 hours and a little more than 2 hours now. But they're graded differently, so they're scored differently. The ACT has 4 components where the SAT really just has the 2. So you have the reading and the English and then the math portion, where the ACT you have the components are reading, English, math, and science. Now, the science has since become optional with the enhanced ACT, but more and more universities are saying, listen, if you're going to take an ACT, don't opt out of science. We want to see that score. But the composite is made up of the 3 sections, so reading, English, and math. And then you get a second score if you opt into science, and you get a STEM score because that's the average of the math and the science together.
Is it by school? Like, do some schools want ACT and some want SATs? Do kids have to take both?
They don't have to take both. They can take one or the other, and they're actually equally accepted in universities. So I always look at a student's strengths. We might take a practice test of both and see which one they performed better at. And then and that's what we choose, right? Because we want the best score. And then if they score about the same, it's about preference. Did they like one format over the other? And some kids, they score about the same, but they don't like the tests the same. They may say, nope, I like this way better. But one is not easier than the other. That's a myth. They're both equally as hard. The math is exactly the same. They both go to trigonometry. So, they're challenging tests.
When do kids start coming to you to prep for the SAT and the ACT?
So I get kids that want to start prepping even before they're in high school, and that's just way too early. And there are programs that cater to students that that start that early, but by and large, what I've found is when they start that early, they burn out. And I want a student to stay excited and engaged. It's an expensive program. So I recommend a student start tutoring either between their sophomore and junior years or in their junior year.
Because you take it during your junior year.
You take it, the schools generally give an SAT in March. And so a lot of students will start prepping in the fall to prepare for that March test. The biggest hitch, I would say, is that I want my students to have a semester of Algebra 2 before we start into the math section. And the reason for that is because if the math is that difficult and goes through trigonometry, if they don't have at least a semester of Algebra 2, it's really hard for them. That math is very, very complicated. It can be, it can ruin their confidence, and I don't want that at all. And they tend not to understand the strategies we're teaching them, which are really important in test taking.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll know. Now I know for my son.
Now you know.
Because he's just a freshman now.
Yes. And he's in geometry. So he will be ready to start prepping between his sophomore and junior years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's perfect. Then he can get it out of the way and done and not have to worry about it.
Do they do pre-SATs here? I know, and that was something we had in Connecticut, but only like the super smart kids that did that. I was smart, but like not you're so smart, we want you to take the PSAT smart.
They do. So every sophomore will take the PSAT in October. And then every junior will take it again in November. And every junior will take it again in October of their junior year. And they take it in October for national merit ranking. So that's the top 1%.
And that's, at least in Texas, you automatically get admitted to certain schools if you're at a certain ranking.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
So if you do really, really well, that PSAT score can earn you some money. Yeah.
Interesting. One of the other things that I see a lot is more homeschooling. Do you see that as a big trend?
That is another trend, yes. So more and more kids I see, moving away from the traditional public independent school district. And they are either going to what now they're offering online programs. So Frisco is offering an online program. Plano will be offering an online program. But there's UT Online, Texas Tech Online. So those are all public online programs.
And those are high school programs?
And those are,
but the university?
They service, yes. Actually, those two are K through 12. So you can enroll. In fact, I have a kiddo that we are going to help with homeschool in the fall. He just enrolled, and he will be doing Texas Tech Online. And so the classes are asynchronous, and sometimes when they're that young, watching the videos, it doesn't always resonate with them. And so we'll have to go back and reiterate what they've learned and make sure that transfer of learning actually happened. That's where those really big fundamentals are built. Mm-hmm. So that's what we'll be doing. But yes, they do K through 12. So it's fantastic. And they even offer the AP classes if they want to go that route. But the trend is moving away from those traditional ISDs, and for a lot of reasons, right? Some kids are moving into micro schools. Some are moving into charter schools. But more and more kids are becoming more competitive outside of the classroom for sports or fine arts. And so those kids often don't have the time traditionally to spend in an 8 to 4 program or a 7 to 4 program.
Yeah. Well, my husband is a hockey coach, and most of his kids, they all homeschool.
Yeah.
Because they have to, right? Yeah. Their academy starts at 1:30, and then, that's for an hour and a half, and then they have lessons afterwards. Then they might do some homework, and then they've got practices that night. I mean, there literally just isn't enough time.
They're on the ice the whole time. Yeah. Most of the day. And that's what we're seeing. Or kids are just doing better on their own, learning on their own, instead of the pressure of the classroom where they're trying to keep up with, what are 25 other kids doing, and how are they performing, and how am I being ranked against them?
And what are they wearing? And do
what
they
is-
like me? And are they passing the notes? Well, I guess we don't pass notes anymore.
We don't
Are they
pass-
texting me?
Are they texting? Yeah. Are they following me? Are they watching my videos? Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's way more than I had to deal with, or you and I. We're the same age, so we had the notes.
Yeah, and then you'd circle which
Yes or
answer,
no, yes.
and then pass it back.
Yes. That was fun, wasn't it?
It was fun. It was fun. But so the homeschool kids have the same challenges as, a kid who's going to school all day, right? They still have, areas where they're going to struggle academically.
They still have the same areas that they might struggle in, in a normal ISD or a private school. It's just they just get help like any other student, or when they're going to a true homeschool, maybe, something that is being facilitated by mom or dad, they might get to a point where their parent can't or isn't comfortable facilitating, right? And so that's where we can also jump in.
There is no way I could help my child with math. Like I was lost in like third grade because they changed the way that they do arithmetic. There's like the boxes or cubes or something now. And so I'd be lost.
Michelle, who's our tutor coordinator, we often laugh and we're like, gosh, between the two of us, we'd be a really, really strong tutor because my forte is not language arts. Certainly I could put something together, but it takes me a whole lot longer. And I can't spell unless I have spell check. And I don't claim to ever have been a speller. But my forte is math. And so together we would be this superpower, right? But I also tell my tutors and my students, the older I get, the dumber I get. I can't do the same math that I could do at 25.
Yeah. How are the kids keeping up these days with math?
Oh my gosh, we're seeing that. That's probably the other big trend, right? Math is changing, and I think parents have always felt like, okay, am I able to teach in the same way that the teachers are teaching? And for years, we've heard this idea of this new math,
right?
Well, it is not new. It's just different methods to teach. But even with those methods, we're finding that students are struggling to memorize multiplication facts. And when you're struggling at that level, it's going to be hard to build because, once you hit pre-algebra, algebra, you start needing to simplify. And all of that is based on multiples. And how do you learn multiples? Well, you learn your multiplication facts. So we're seeing a lot of that. And my older kids who are taking some pretty advanced math courses, if they have some gaps and holes, it becomes very apparent very quickly. And so we have to figure out how to cover those holes as well as, keep them on pace with what they're learning so they're not falling behind. But
what do you
that's
think
huge.
Is the reason that they're falling behind? Is it COVID has to be a factor.
I think there's a lot of it. We're still seeing some from COVID, right? But I think the classrooms are getting bigger. And so, teachers can't stop for one or two students to get the gist of what they're working on, right? They work with them after school and in the mornings. But even those tutorial classes are so huge that they're not getting one-on-one attention. And then, some of them are just really anxious. They don't want to raise their hand and say, I don't understand. And so it can be months or years before those deficits those gaps are found. And then they're at a point and then suddenly like, how did we not know that this existed?
I feel like that's what happened with me with the SATs. We talked about bombing the SATs earlier, and I kind of bombed my math the first time I took it. I think I didn't realize how far behind I was until I took the SAT, because that brings it all together. It's not just what's...
It brings it's everything from algebra all the way up. And so and I will tell you the other thing that I see a lot is I hear parents tell me that they've had multiple math teachers in the same year. And that can be devastating to a student. Imagine having to get used to one teaching style. Now you're getting used to 2 teaching styles, or maybe 3 or 4. And so it can be hard to stay on pace when there are multiple teachers in one year.
Or you just have a teacher that you just don't jive with.
You just don't jive, right? Or they don't explain it in the way you need to hear it, or, and any number of things.
I think that's what's happening with my son a little bit, is just the way they explain it isn't, you just can't hear it that way, right? So when having the tutor helps a lot, because it's just somebody else explaining the same thing, but in a different way. Yeah. And then that helps. So I would tell you, so the teacher, the tutor, your tutor, sent him like the answer to a formula after the meeting. I guess, I don't know, he took a picture of his notes or something for Walden. And I was like, what did... I recognize the circle and I recognize the triangle, but that's about it.
That's hilarious.
But Walden got it, so that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
But yeah, I think he just needed it explained to him in a different way.
It's true. And, people learn differently, right? So some people are verbal learners. Some people are spatial learners. And I'm a spatial learner. I need to see things written. I need to draw pictures. If I don't, I used to say I can't teach math without a chalkboard or a whiteboard because I've got to draw. And I think drawing it out for me helped explain it. Thankfully, I think most of the people that I tutored in college were also able to learn in that way. Because you have to be able to explain it 20 different ways, but I like pictures.
And that's what makes a good tutor too, is someone who can understand the student and understand what helps them learn and adjust accordingly.
Yeah. And sometimes it is rote memorization. Yeah. And we can't forget that. There are just some things that we just have to...
Multiplication tables,
addition, subtraction, division. It's just, you just have to learn those things in order to build on your math.
Wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah.
No, I'm just kidding. Fine. We'll memorize.
Whatever.
One of the things that I admire about you most, so we've known each other. I've had this business. I'm in my 6th year too. You're, I think, a little bit ahead of me. And when we started our businesses, so we've sort of been around the same circles in the female entrepreneur groups and just small business groups throughout the DFW area. And one of the things I admire about you is you are such a power networker, and you're all about connecting with people, and you're just so good at it. So for small business owners who are out there right now, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you used networking and in-person connection to connect with people and to grow your business.
It's about connection. It really is. You can go to a chamber meeting. You can go to a BNI or a Master Networks or any number of groups out there. But if you don't get to know people one-on-one and learn their why, and then really, very frankly, let them get to know you and why you're doing what you're doing, you can't become a cheerleader for anyone else, and they can't become a cheerleader for you. And so I talked about one of the reasons I wanted to get into this is because I wanted to be closer to my community. And it's not just the kids, right? It's also the community of other small business owners, people that are making the city work. And it really is. There's a ton of small businesses, whether it's the person that owns the pizza shop down the road or the bakery or the salad place, or, it could be the tutoring center, whatever it is, it's all, we all make up our city, and we have to support each other. And so I just always believed that I needed to get to know people, and I wanted to understand why they're doing what they're doing and what's driving them to want to show up every day and to want to be there. And then it also gives me an opportunity that if I have a parent or a family that says, gosh, I'm looking for somebody to help me with college counseling, or I really need somebody to help me, we are going through a hard family time. Do you know of some family therapists? And by the way, my families have been there for me as well. But that's why it's so important. And then from that, anytime I see these people at an event, I want to make sure that I share with the world that they were with me, that we had a great time, that we're out promoting our community and promoting small business and commerce. I think that's just essential.
Yeah.
And then again, they do the same for me. So when you think about your sales army and your referral army, initially when you start out, it's you and whoever your biggest cheerleader is. Mine is my husband. He's my biggest cheerleader. But eventually you want that army to be huge, because you never know who they know.
And I see it when people look for a tutor on any of the local mom groups or whatever. I mean, there will be literally 30 people who will put your name in.
And that makes me so happy. And it just, it fills my heart. It's like, okay, well, what makes me smile is when I see clients that refer me, because they know I've done a good job with their child and they're willing to offer, hey, they worked really well for us. But somebody who may not have used my services but knows how passionate I am about kids, that means just as much to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when someone like me, I'm a good example. I have known you for 5 years. I didn't have a need to use you.
Not
I
back
preferred
then.
you.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I had a need, and there was no question in my mind. And it was funny. My ex-husband and I were coordinating this together, and he's like, well, we should look at a couple people, right? And I was like, no, we don't need. We're just going to go with Sandy. Like, there's no one else besides Sandy. Like, that's just what we're going to do.
I appreciate that.
We did on a very cursory level because he asked, and I
Of course.
wanted to be respectful, but it wasn't a contest, right? Because we knew, and it's because I know you, I see you, there's that know, like, and trust.
It's true. That is huge. You have to be likable, right? You can't be this person that is only promoting business and doesn't care about anybody else or anything else. You have to actually be a caring person behind what you're doing. So, and I think that's key.
It is a hard balance, though, because you do, after a couple years, start becoming friends with people, and then you're not talking about your business. And so do they remember what you do? And there's a fine line there. How do you straddle that?
You have to remind them in little subtle ways, invite them to things that you are promoting. I sponsor a lot of nonprofit events, and I do that so that for those people that have become friends over the years, I want them to see what good we're doing in the community, but also remember what I'm all about as well. And so you just have to bring it up over and over again. Same with you, right? I know that you're the marketing mentor. And you and I have worked together outside of this podcast. You and I have worked together, and it's been incredible. And when somebody says, who can teach me how to do? Well, Sherry, of course. But that's, beyond the friendship, it's still about how do we promote each other? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's a hard balance.
It's a hard balance. Yeah.
For people to strike, because you want to be friends, but you also, we're all business people. And yeah, it's an interesting balance. So one of the biggest things I hear from small business owners is like just the exhaustion level of being everywhere, feeling like you have to be everywhere and you have to go to every happy hour and you have to go to all the things. And, especially if you're not an extrovert, it can get really, really exhausting. Yeah. And so how do you balance that?
You know, you cannot say yes to everything. You have to, at the end of the day, remember you are still in business to make money, not to go spend money on wine or coffee, right? While those things are fun and essential, they have a place, and you have to network with purpose. And that is getting to know people and getting to know what they do, and then letting people get to know you. Beyond that, you have to pick and choose. And it's funny, I was having this very same conversation with a couple of people from the Frisco Chamber last week. Sometimes no is a full sentence. I think Carrie Ermitz said that. And it's true. Sometimes no is a full sentence, and you have to pick and choose. When I first started out, yes, I was doing a whole lot more than I'm doing now. But as the business grows and the demands of the business grow, you have less and less time to do those activities.
And less bandwidth.
Yeah. And so you have to choose the things that are going to be the most productive for you. And also, let's not forget, if there's something that fills your cup, do that. Because, as you said, being an entrepreneur, it's hard. It can be lonely. You are, at the end of the day, the person that cares the most about your business. So that I think you just have to be very purposeful. But it's not any different than what I used to tell. I used to mentor in the corporate world, and the biggest question I got by far, hands down, was, how do you manage work life? How do you do work-life balance? And I think it's with clarity and with purpose, but it's also, being a solopreneur, it's harder to do, but we have to remember, and especially as women, we cannot handle and do everything and be everything to everybody. And so there is an analogy that I like to use with the glass and the rubber balls, right? And the glass balls are those things and events that will only happen once. And if you miss them, you miss them. I think of those as weddings, birthdays, graduations, things that I'm not going to see again. And then the rubber balls are things like coffee, a Thursday chamber meeting. Those are things that I can miss, and it's okay. There's going to be another one. It could also be, my kids were in the band, right? And there was a football game every Friday, whether I wanted one or not. There was one every Friday. If I missed a Friday night football game in one of their performances, it's okay, because I was going to see that show again the next week, and in October, every weekend during contest season, marching contest. I was not going to miss it, and I wasn't going to miss the contest, but a football game, it was okay if I missed. And so that's how you have to juggle it, and you can't be all things to everybody, or you will burn out quick.
And you shared that story from the stage at the McKinney Women's Conference a couple years ago, and I remember that. And as you were starting to tell the story, I remember how impactful that was on me. What else? I loved that talk that you gave. What else did you share in that? Because you talked about your time in corporate America and about balancing it all. And I feel like you shared some other really good nuggets as well as that one.
I think the biggest one is, as we get really, really busy and stressed out, and we see this in our kids, right? They get busy, they get stressed out, they get caught up in everything that they have to get done. And this is where they start. We lose sight of what we really know. And I learned this in my first year of business. I was It was during the height of COVID. It was in July, and I was panicked. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I could only think about how was I going to make payroll. Here I'd hired these people who needed part-time jobs, and how was I going to pay them? Much less, how was I going to pay my own bills, right? And so I was spinning out of control. And, I knew how to run a business. AT&T does a very good job of training their managers how to run businesses within a business. But I had lost my head. I did not know which end was up. And I hired a business coach. And she said, I want you to go outside and take off your shoes. And I want you to just step in the grass. And I want you to physically ground yourself. And there's something to that. And touching Mother Earth that really does ground you and the energy that you have. But it's also about thinking about something else that you're not currently thinking about that's spinning your head. And I said this in the conference of, for those that know me and know that I'm an overachiever, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go in the grass. But I laid down. I thought, well, if my feet can ground me, then I'm really going to be grounded. I'm going to lay in the grass and I am going to, by gosh, get every inch of me grounded. And I'm going to feel better just instantly.
Did it work?
To some degree, yes. Yes. She also told me, I want you to eat root vegetables and it was just going, listening to your body. What is your body telling you? But like I said, it was more about getting my mind off of things, letting me breathe, take a really, really deep breath, and calm down. And when I became calm, then I started writing down, what can I do to solve this problem? It was not about being in a crisis mode. At that point, I was able to see clearly. I was able to start actually letting my brilliance come through. I applied for a PPP loan. I made payroll, no problem. I had money for the next couple of months that got me through until money started coming in again. And I put a plan together for the fall that was actually saved my entire year and I think my business. But I will tell you that is part of what we work with as well. When you tutor, you're working with somebody who may be so stressed out about geometry. They to some degree know what they're working with, but they forget how smart they are. They forget how capable they are. And until somebody can calm them down, their brilliance doesn't shine through. And then that's when everything starts to make sense for them.
Yeah. And that's what tutoring helps with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly that. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
Where can people find you?
They can find me on the web. It's tutordoctor.com/Frisco. Or you can just call my office, 972-703-9344.
Or at pretty much all the networking
All the
places
networking
around
events,
town. Yeah. You're pretty active on social.
Yeah.
So excellent. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.